how to import the data from the production database to the Hadoop cluster. Right. So yesterday we have seen some executions on getting the data to the SDFS from the RDBMS, and then we have seen how to list the databases, how to list the tables in a database, and what is a connection string, how to establish the connection string, and how to write a Sqoop connection. We have seen in yesterday session. Okay, so today we'll run more Sqoop import statements, different types of imports to import data to the Hadoop cluster. Right. So it's very important thing. Like, so every day we are getting the production data to the production database. So every day, so we'll get some 1,000 records yesterday, then today we'll get 1,001 to 2,000, then next day 2,001 3,000 to 4,000. So like that, we'll get the data every day. So what we'll do now, we'll run a job which is scheduled. So this job runs, and by default it will import the data from the production database into a specific directory in SDFS. So that can be done by the automated. So you have to write a job to import the data. See, you have to write a job. Then you have to schedule the job using a component called Uzi. So we have the different job scheduling tools are there. So you can use any of the job scheduling tool like cron jobs, Stadla, or Uzi to schedule the job. So the job runs on a specific interval time. So obviously the data, newly incremented data, will be automatically imported to the SDFS. Okay, right. So actually what we should know to import the data from the RDBMS, what I should know, right? So you should know the three things. The first one is whether the table is enabled by the primary key, right? You should know this, right? So before taking performing the Sqoop import, first you should check, you should know that whether the table is enabled by the primary key or not is one thing we should know. Then, so whether you have the privileges to connect to MySQL, so you should know this. And the third one, where in SDFS, where you have to import the data. Where in SDFS, you should know the target location where in SDFS you want to import the data, right? So these are the three things we should know before writing Sqoop import statement. Okay, now see here how to import the data. Right, simple. You can write Sqoop command, then write an import statement, right? Because Sqoop import is a given command which is used to import the data, correct? So then write the Sqoop import. So after that, what we have to write? We have to write the connection string. So you have to remember, always a connection string starts with the keyword connect. Then write JDBC because this connection uses JDBC method. So I write connect JDBC colon the database which I'm trying to connect to the MySQL. JDBC colon MySQL. So where MySQL is configured? It's configured in a localhost. Okay, what is the database name you're trying to connect to? That is a test. What is the table name? Write some table name which you're trying to connect to. Fine. So now by default there it will be imported to the SDFS. Correct. But the thing is, I told you should know the table is enabled by the primary key or not, because see the importing process is different if the table is enabled by the primary key or if the table is not enabled by the primary key. The simple logic, suppose if we have like this one Ajay to Naveen, then you can differentiate, right? So like this we have 25,000 rows are there. Now I can run multiple processes, right? Suppose I can run multiple mappers, in the sense processes. Suppose if I run -m5, then that means I'm going to run 5 mappers. That is 5 processes goes to the RDBMS. So now process 1 will retrieve 1 to 5,000, process 2 retrieve 5,001 to 10,000, the mapper 3 retrieve 10,001 to 15,000, then process 4 or the mapper for 15,000 to 20,000, like it will retrieve. That means when the data is indexed with an ID, when a data is enabled by the primary key, so that we can divide the rows for a number of mappers, right? So if the table is enabled by the primary key, that means we can able to run the multiple mappers, right? So what is the logic here? If table is enabled by the primary key, so we can run multiple mappers. Okay, mappers, or we can run multiple processes. But suppose if the table is not enabled by the primary key, in the sense, suppose we have something like this, the data is username and the product name Ajay and iPhone 6, right? Then Vijay and some STC. Now, suppose you want to run the multiple mappers, but how you differentiate the rows for a multiple mappers, right? So here username is there and the product name is there. So this is the table which is not enabled by the primary key. So if table is not enabled by the primary key, so what you have to remember, we cannot run multiple mappers. Okay, we cannot run multiple mappers. If the table is enabled by the primary key, we can run multiple mappers. If the table is not enabled by the primary key, we cannot run multiple mappers. So how many mappers you should run? We should run only one mapper. Actually, what is running a mapper? Running a mapper in the sense, you're writing the Sqoop import command. Just write the Sqoop import, then write the connection string and the database name, the table name, right? Now, some process should get the data from the database. Somebody should responsible to transfer the data, right? So now, if you write the number of mappers, suppose if I write hyphen m space 1, then one process, in the sense one mapper will goes to the database, it will try to retrieve the data. If you run four mappers, then four processes simultaneously goes to the database, try to retrieve the data, right? So this is what we call running the number of mappers. So now you should know that if the table is enabled by the primary key, we can run multiple mapper. That is, you can write hyphen m space 2. Then two mappers will goes to the database and will try to retrieve the data. But suppose if the table is not enabled to primary key, we cannot run. So if you write something like this hyphen m3, then it will throw the error. It will suggest you to use. It will suggest Sqoop will suggest users to use one mapper, or it will suggest split by. Tell me how to split the table to run the multiple mappers, right? You have to specify these two, any one of these two things to run the multiple mappers, right? It's an interview question, right? How we run multiple mappers for a table which is not enabled by the primary key. What is the question? How to run the multiple mappers if the table is not enabled by the primary key? The answer is we have to use split by. Okay, so with a split
Okay.
by, we can run multiple mappers, right? We'll see these things in the execution, so no need to worry about that. So now I'm going to run this command. So first, I'm going to run a simple Sqoop import. Okay, so I'm taking the three terminals, right? So don't get confused with the multiple terminals and try to habituate to work with multiple terminals simultaneously, right? And you should try
So the
to,
number of
try to dedicate each individual terminal for individual component. Right? Don't try to work everything in one environment. So dedicate this for the MySQL. MySQL -u root -p to connect to MySQL, and the password here it is Cloudera. Okay, so this is the MySQL terminal. So my database is test. Right, so now I'll run all the MySQL queries from this terminal. Now I'll take another terminal to perform the SDFS activities. Right, so this is I'm giving SDFS. Okay, so take another terminal for the Sqoop. I'm in a test database. So to see the tables, show tables. Right, so we have the different tables are available. Right, I'll take some table, right, a new test. Can write select start from new test. Okay, so we have some rows available in the table. Okay, and here try to remember one point. What you have to remember, whenever we are trying to import the data, Sqoop import, right? Sqoop always tries to create a directory. What is the directory name? The table name is the directory name. Okay, Sqoop import will create a directory. So whatever the table name in the MySQL, with the name of the table name, it will create a directory name. So under the directory name, it will create a part2 file, right? So it writes the data to a part2 file. So the part2 file, in the sense, it will be in the form of part-m-000000. So it will create a part file. Suppose if you run one mapper, each mapper will create its own part file. So if you run one mapper, it will create one part file. Suppose if you run multiple mappers, then it will create multiple part files. So how many mappers you're running? 4 mappers. So it will generate 4 part files, like part hyphen m-000 is a one file. 2 it will create part hyphen m-hyphen 3 part files it will create. Right, so how many number of mappers you run, that number of part files are going to create it under the direct name, where the direct name is the like similar exact direct table name in MySQL name. In MySQL, whatever the table name, the same direct with the same name, a directory is going to be created under the SDFS, and how many number of mappers you are going to run, that many number of part files are going to be created, and the data is written to this part files. Okay, so now I'm going to run the command sqoop, then write the connection string connect jdbc mysql // localhost, and the database name is test. Then what is the table name? Hyphen table name is new test. Okay, now tell me how many number of mappers you want to run. Right, so what you should know, whether the table is enabled by the primary key or not. Right, so we have to check here in the MySQL. So if you write desc new test, the table is not enabled by the primary key. And when you're trying to import the Sqoop will try to create a directory in SDFS. So make sure that there should not be a directory in SDFS with a table name. So if any directory is there with a new text, Hadoop FS-RMR new test, it is going to be deleted. So there is no directory in SDFS with the name new test. Okay, right. So if you write Hadoop space FS-ls new test, clear. Right, now see here, I won't run the any first I'll run simple one mapper hyphen m space 1. Okay, how many mappers I'm going to run? One mapper, press enter. So right, what's saying that we got some error. What is the error here? You have to write the command sqoop import. Press enter. Right now it's a one mapper, so one part file is going to be created. Where in SDFS it will try to create a directory. What is the name of the directory? What is the table name? New test. So a directory in SDFS is going to be created with the name new test. Under one mapper, one part file is going to be created. Okay, retrieved 6 records. Now see here, Hadoop space fs-ls new test. Okay, now see a part file is going to be created. So now write Hadoop space fs-cat. You can see the content new test part -m-000000. It's a CSV file, comma subject values. Right, so this is how we imported data from the MySQL to SDFS directory, right, with one mapper. So if the table is enabled by the primary key, then you can run multiple mappers, right? So what will be the error here? Okay, so the table is not enabled by the primary key. So what it is suggesting, I try to run multiple mappers. So what it is saying that please run one mapper or use split by. Okay, so suppose if you do, I don't specify any mappers, press enter. Okay, so what it's suggesting? It is suggesting that use at least one mapper or split by. Okay, so what we understood here, so if the table is not enabled by the primary key, so we cannot run more than one mapper, right? It's mandatory, either the table should be specified with one mapper and split by. Okay, so we can't run multiple mappers. Okay, now I don't want to import to this particular directory. I just want to import to a specific directory in SDFS. Okay, so right, what I want to do is I want to import to a specific directory in SDFS. This importing cost to specific directory in SDFS. So specific directory means I want Sqoop to create a directory with the name Ajay. Right, in this directory Ajay, it has to write the data. For this we have a parameter is provided, that is target-dir. So just write this parameter target-dir, then specify the location where you want to create the directory. So I am writing user, then Cloudera, then Ajay. Then Sqoop will import the data rows to the location user Cloudera Ajay. Right, so which parameter you have to write? For the same Sqoop command at the end, write target dir. Okay, see now I'll run this here. So first make sure that Ajay should not be there in SDFS. Right, state. So I'll write some name, new Sam. Right, so Hadoop space FSFN RMR. So the new directory I'm going to create with the name test567. Right, I want to write the data to a directory test567. So before that, I make sure that it's not there in SDFS. Okay, so now I'm running the Sqoop import. So the same command. So now write one parameter here, target-dir. So where you want to write the data. Now Sqoop will create a directory, and in that particular directory it writes the data. So I am writing user, then Cloudera, then the directory which I gave, test 567. Press enter. That is the error, right? So there is no mappers we have specified. So after the table name, now specify the how many number of mappers, -m space 1.
If we want to split by, how can we split?
Yeah, that we'll see later. Okay, now retrieve 6 records. Now where the 6 records are wrote, to the specific directory, the directory which was specified, test 567. So now write Hadoop space fs-ls, then test 567. Press enter. Okay, so now we have a one part file is there, correct? So now you can see where it is created. Now it is created under test 567, right? Simple. I wrote one parameter, that is target hyphen AR. Okay, so you can write cat, then test 567 what hyphen m hyphen 0000. Right, this is the way importing to a specific directory in HDFS. Okay, fine. So how to write this query? So this is the syntax. Okay, so this is use this command. Right now, this is what we did. We imported the to a specific directory. Correct. Now I want import to a I want import specific column. I don't want to get the complete table. I just want to import only the name of the employees. Only specific column import. I want to import. That is importing specific columns from HDFS to a specific directory. Right? So what I want to do now, I want to import only the specific column. In the sense, see here, what we have name and an ID, and name is there. So I don't want ID. I want to import only the name. Right? So for this, we have to use one property, columns. Okay. So I'll write the query here. Right, just as well write the Sqoop import, then write the connection string, the database name, and after that what is the table name, write the table name, right? And after the table name, now specify the parameters, which column you want to import, then write the columns, hyphen hyphen columns. So what is the column name? Check in the MySQL table to know the column name, right? So what is the column name? Having ID and the name, right? So you write name, column is name. Okay, just write columns space name. Now I want to import it to the directory 568. Press enter. Okay, now 6 records. Where we wrote those records? We wrote records to the 568, correct? So test 568, then the part file is part-mfn0, press enter. See now, we have imported only the rows, only one column, that is name. So I wrote a command like this. Okay, so as usual, Sqoop import, right, in the new test, then columns, just write the name, which column name you want to import. Okay, then specify the location, right? So this is like importing the specific columns to the SDFS from the MySQL, right? So when I'm trying to import the data, I want to encrypt the data. I want to make the data which cannot be able to read by the users. See here, every time when we run the command Hadoop FSFN cat, the users can able to see the data. So the data which is still now available in SDFS, which is safe and secure. But when you imported the data to the Hadoop cluster, that then we can able to see the data, right? So that now I want to make the data to be some converted into some ununderstandable format, right? So in a Hadoop, we have sequential files. What we call it as a sequential files. Sequential files. Sequential files in the sense these files are encrypted. Okay. So now when I'm going to import the data, I want to make the data to be in a sequential format, right? So for this, we have to write the same command, right? So this is importing rows as sequential files. How we do this? Right? This is regular Sqoop import command. Write the command. Right? Number of mappers. Now target directory. So now here before the target directory, just specify what is the table name you want to import. New test, right? So then write how you want to import. I want to import as a sequence file. So just write one parameter as sequence file. Okay, write as sequence file, then write -m space 1. So I want to write it to a specific directory with the name 569, right? See the same Sqoop, then write the connection string, database name, table name, and at the end of the after writing the table name, specify one parameter, that is as sequence file. Now it Sqoop will import the data, as well as at the time of import it will convert the data into some ununderstandable format, and will be written to the directory test 569. Okay, copy this. See, I'll run here. Now it will be converted into some ununderstandable format, so we can't able to read the data. Okay, now we retrieved 6 records. What is the directory name? 569, correct? See here in the SDFS terminal, Hadoop FSFM ls test 569, press enter, right? So we have given a part file. So try to read this file, Hadoop space FSFN cat, then test 569 slash part m 0000, press enter, right? See now it's an ununderstandable format. right? So you want to see from the browser, right? Connect to the name node and then data node, browse the file system, right? What is the location? We can type here user Cloudera and test 569, press enter.
Ajay, I'm having one small doubt.
Just second, Navin. I'll start to say is if the table is enabled by the primary key, okay, and you don't need to specify -m1, right? Then it will take 4 mappers to run. Okay, if the table is enabled by the primary key, so you don't write -m1 also, it works. So it takes default number of mappers are 4 mappers. By default it takes 4 mappers. Will try to retrieve the data. Okay, so like sequential file, we have the avro data files are there, right? So avro is a one component in Hadoop, right? Avro file, avro is one component in Hadoop, which is used to serialize the data. What is a serialization? Right, so we have serializing and deserialization. Anyway, we'll see that in a study in Hive, right? So you know that Java serialization, right? Any serialization, right? Moving the data, processing the data into a specific format. So we'll get the data into one format, then we'll deserialize into some other format, right? Serialization. So avro is one component which is best used for the serialization. So the avro will have the files with a format .avro. Okay, so now when you are going to import the data with the Sqoop, we can able to import the rows as a avro format. Okay, we can able to import the rows as a avro format. So to get the data to the avro format, so what we have to write? So just see, as instead of writing the as sequence file, we write a parameter as avro data file, right? The same command we run here. Okay, see, if you have a time today, spend this week or prepare some documentation on Hadoop file formats. Okay, so try this weekend, right? So we have the different file formats are there. Like generally we know that XML file, JSON file, CSV file, CSV file. So they are the different. Now, when we are going to store the data, we have ORC files, right? And then we says we have avro file format is available, and then we use parquet file format is available, right? So these are the different file formats are available. Okay, so just prepare a documentation or just go through Google about the different types of file formats available. Okay, so in that one, avro is a one format which we can use best for the serialization. So when we are going to import the data, we can import the file as an avro file, right? How we do this? Just the same Sqoop command. So now instead of the sequence file, here write the parameter as avro data file. Okay, now it will create a file with the name .avro. Press enter. It will throw the error because 569 is already exist, right? So I'll give 570, right? To import as a data avro, we have to run the command like this. Next, add one parameter as avro data file. Okay, it returned 6 records. Now see here, clear Hadoop space fs-ls test 570, press enter. Okay, see now a file is going to create with the name part-m-50 dot avro file. So this is in avro file format.